All right, batting practice, guys. Let's quickly talk two or three topics that arose out of the trade shows. 2018 Breguet Marine. Did it accomplish what it needed for the sake of the brand and the Marine model line? Where did this fall?
I think it did. I mean, I've long been a fan of the Breguet Marine. Actually, I think Breguet, outside of Patek Philippe, Breguet maybe does sporty luxury better than just about anybody with their pilot watches and with the Marine. And I think focusing on this line as their headliner this year was a really good idea, and in kind of in keeping with an overall theme of Baselworld and maybe SIHH. Which was luxury brands kind of putting things out there that are maybe a little more sporty, maybe a little more even affordable.
Yeah, going with titanium at a base price just over $18,000, certainly an aggressive price point. Roger, do you have an opinion on the new Breguet line? There's been a lot of talk about this because it was, I mean, Breguet is the peak, it's the apex of the Swatch Group, and when they redesign a core model line, that by definition, that's a big deal.
Breguet knows how to do complicated watches. That's something that they don't need to prove to anyone. But Breguet, as with pretty much every other brand, they need to find new buyer segments. And by doing something like the Breguet Marine with a slightly more masculine or sporty approach, they will certainly be able to do that. Which means that this segment is going to help to attract a new segment of buyers to the brand, which will then evolve into, now I'm going to buy the Tourbillon.
Okay, and I think that's a reasonable assessment. I think honestly the collection seems a little bit uneven. I feel like the value proposition is definitely there with the $18,000 40mm titanium automatic. I do feel that the most interesting is probably the chronograph with that gorgeous guilloche blue dial. That's a genuinely beautiful watch. I feel like the automatic maybe is a bit too plain, and while I love the alarm complication, that one is a little bit high horology fabulous with the silver dial and the red gold. I would love to see that in a more muted tone, and again, you do have to buy it in precious metal, but I do believe there is a white gold option right there. For me, the most interesting Breguet Marine of the year was actually the Race for Water exclusive edition, which is made for the crew of a very specific solar-powered boat. And if that comes to market with the blue dial and the titanium case, I think that will be the most desirable of the 2018 Breguet Marines. Now, on a related note, we're talking kind of the hits and misses of the trade shows. The SIHH Moser Swiss Icons watch, was this blunder or brilliance? I mean, is there such a thing as negative publicity, or is it all good? Privately, they seemed pretty excited about this watch in as much as they sold out all their novelties this year. Does it help or does it hurt?
It certainly helps when you look at brand exposure. Since it's always been intended as a marketing stunt and as a real product that's going to be launched, it did well. I'm not sure, and that's something that I occasionally struggle with Moser. I think their marketing is brilliant, but it doesn't feel like it fits the very traditional, elegant style of the brand. But that's where you started. There is no such thing as bad PR.
Now, they do have sort of like a happy-go-lucky thing about their advertising that seems almost a little bit like postmodern and silly, and then the watches themselves tend to be very stolid, you know, Swiss German in character. What do you think of that market?
Yeah, no, it's kind of a dichotomy, really. And from when I first started covering my very first Baselworld, the last brand I saw was Moser, and it was my favorite. And it was the first time they did that really simple perpetual calendar. And since then, it's gone in a very different direction. Different owners, obviously. And in this case, we were joking about at SIHH that what is the one watch that everyone's talking about is the watch that's not actually there.
Yeah, that's true.
It was the Moser, that crazy contraption they came up with.
Variously called the Frankenstein watch, the Swiss Icons watch. It was an adventurous piece, and I have to say, you know, there's edgy and then there's offensive. I'm not sure which side of the fence that is on. It's certainly straddling, but provocative. And finally, speaking of provocative, this year new watches, the Urwerk AMC, the Atomic Master Clock, and the Ressence Type 2 E-Crown, mechatronic hybrids. Are they the future, or are they an evolutionary dead end for the luxury watch space?
Personal opinion. because it is a difficult question. I think that there will always be the purist collector looking for something purely mechanical. So a hybrid, as interesting as it might seem, and as interesting it might seem for a very narrow market segment, I don't think it's going to be the future.
That's interesting. I think it could live almost indefinitely as almost like marsupials in Australia, like a bizarre, like isolated niche that never really waxes or wanes.